He's hitting the most ridiculous shots anyone has ever seen. His movement is flawless. Like, it's just a god of execution, and it looks like it just transforms the map. Because now if he sees you, you're taking that damage. However, when it's not going well, you don't quite get the Tox that, you know, you're familiar with, and then it's entirely different. As you can see now, yeah, we have the picks and bans, Awoken, Ruins, and Molten Falls. Cypher going in with the keel on Ruins?
Yeah, Cypher's just gone full battle mode. He obviously appreciates what Tox wants to do, and allowing Tox to get that slash, I think Cypher's response to that is like, I know you're going to fight me, so I'm going to get as big a stack as I could. I mean, I probably would have preferred to have potentially a scale bearer, but I can understand why he's gone for the keel for that additional damage in combat. And so you can just see with his picks overall is that every one of those picks outmatches Tox essentially in terms of pure stack, and so that's what Cypher wants to do.
Yeah, very clever plays from the Belarusian player right there, or picks rather. I also find it interesting that he's starting off with the Sorlag. Might have been a preemptive pick against Toxjq, because we all know how much Tox loves the air control champions, right? Anarchy, Sorlag, he's so good with them. Same goes with Slash for his crouch sliding, so it's interesting to see that Cypher, as you just mentioned, goes not only for the bigger stack, but also to maybe cut off Tox with that additional mobility.
I think actually what we've been given here is a fantastic veto between these two. We've got all of the speed and aggressive champions that Tox thrives in, right? An environment that he absolutely loves to get involved with. You've got these champion picks that have already got us sort of speculating on what Cypher's going to be doing inside of the game. And if there was a best of 3 to start us off, just fresh off the bat as we get into these 3, I think this is the one that I would want to watch. So I'm glad we've got it as a gem, lads. I mean, opening thoughts on this as a whole, Ryan, Flea, who do you think's taking this?
I think there is a ridiculously high chance of it being a 2-1. If we're going by previous results, we know that Tox has been able to defeat Cypher in the past, but again, this is just up a notch, isn't it? It's the final situation, stage 3 finals alone. I'd go as far to say that I do think Cypher has the edge, but I do strongly think it's going to be a 2-1.
I also agree. I do think that this will be going towards Cypher's favor, because if we look at the previous stats, Cypher won 2 out of their 3 encounters in the Quake Pro League, but of course the most recent one went in Tox's favor, so it's going to be extremely curious to see who gets the best today.
We're going to get all the information we need, and often we do when it comes to Toxjq in the first map. A lot of the times the first map is kind of enough information to gauge kind of what his form on the day is. And if Tox is on fire throughout this map, then obviously Cypher has to make sure that he's at his A game to go toe-to-toe. Because when Tox is live, it can be very hard to really take him off that podium.
I wonder if we're gonna see any sneaky totem placements come out of Tox. Oh wow, that was such a quick opener. It almost didn't seem like Tox would be railable after that, but Cypher did just enough damage to make that rail a kill shot, and is gonna put him 1 frag in the lead off the bat. And look at that stack advantage too on the Sorlag, the big lizard. He knows exactly where his opponent is right now and does not want to let Tox escape unharmed. Here we go, 1 nice rail. Tox really not looking all that stacked right now. Cypher is just gonna push right in.
I do love the chunky champion choices that we've seen from Cypher throughout this entire pick and ban, on the basis alone of if you are aware that you're against Tox, and even if Tox is having a good day, you know that you have the stack difference to kind of take that punishment. That's one element Cypher's going to have, that if he's really able to kind of fight fire with fire in respect, as long as he has that decent stack, he can kind of take a lot of that. But now, not so fortunate position. Really smart use of the rocket jump. The damage he took from that rocket jump was far less than if Tox was able to push that.
The situation preceding that was kind of a misplay from Cypher though. He was not expecting Tox to just push in aggressively, and that's exactly what the Swede will do. The railgun to finish it off, of course, the rail NLG, the bread and butter of the player that is the Terminator. Ready to kick things up a notch. Cypher though setting up a beautiful trap. Silver lining for Tox in that situation is that he at least denied the heavy, and it looks like he's gonna deny Mega as well, but it doesn't matter because Cypher off the spawn as the Sorlag still has an enormous stack, and he's just gonna string together 3 frags in what, 20 seconds? Absolutely brutal play right there.
One of the most savage frags to concede is when there is 0 damage dealt, and then while it's gone down, Sorlag's already in motion. Cypher was so free to be able to navigate Tox! The trade that definitely really shouldn't have happened. That SSG just did not hit the damage that Tox definitely wanted it to. Remember, this is Awoken. Comebacks are totally possible, and by no means are we going to count him out until that way late game situation. But for now, I really feel like Cypher did a good hold on things. He's definitely ambushed Tox a lot more than Tox has been able to ambush him.
I think Cypher is well aware that Toxjq doesn't have the lightning gun right now based on where he spawned. Tox has rail, he's got rockets, but he doesn't have LG, and that puts him in a bad situation for these mid-range fights. Exactly what Cypher is trying to take at him right now. The rail won't connect. Cypher slips out of the room, still holding that top position. Expecting Toxjq to peek. Nice little shotgun burst from above, and it will be Toxjq taking away Mega Cypher solo right now.
That's
Preemptively using the spit, won't connect for a single point of damage. He's still 3 frags in the lead, but he's definitely hurting when it comes to control.
The Heavy's the next one to spawn, and with Cypher, not much of a stack, all things considered. If that was a light, then maybe we'd be saying something different, but comparing that to Tox's stack as well, and the fact that he has a totem locked and loaded, ready to go again. Cypher's playing this very carefully. He knows he has to be careful. That totem being destroyed is going to give Tox some information, so Tox, upon seeing the totem down, is going to run straight back to that location. But no damage really dealt. Cypher playing it nice and slow. He's just looking for a little bit of patience here. Hit a couple of rails perhaps, just some free damage. Unfortunately, as I say that, Cypher does take a rail unchallenged. But again, we're back to that slow play. Cypher's the one in the lead, 3 frags. I mean, he is the one that can dictate this.
I always find it interesting to see how players approach the totems differently when they're playing Helena. Some really go for the sneaky placements and try to hide it, sometimes even on these small archways or slightly out of the map. But then you've got Toxjq, and he really doesn't mess with any of it. He just doesn't care. He uses the totems very traditionally to set them at the edge of a teleporter or to just throw them down mid-fight, or as we just saw, just to get himself a bit of information, which is very different from a player like Razy, who approaches this in his entirely unique way.
Cypher's can have potentially a tricky fight on his hands. He doesn't have any rockets, which means that if Tox is able to push, which he is, oh, that tri-bolt absolutely continues to shred. And Cypher potentially overstaying his welcome, considering he had no rockets. When that push happens, there wasn't a lot of weaponry left. These large champions, easy rail for Tox. All he needs is a guaranteed angle, and he can just do the rest.
Beautiful combo indeed. Toxjq also has got his eyes on the Heavy. Will Cypher be able to do anything against him? He'll get his prize. Take a rail though, just gonna go straight up the bounce pad, knowing that Cypher doesn't have LG yet. But it doesn't matter. Cypher had shotgun and the super shotgun at close range. The amount of damage you can output against someone that close to you, it's obscene. And look at that LG tracking. We've been speculating a lot about Tox's LG, but damn, Cypher can bring it himself when he needs to.
You never get tired of seeing it when Cypher's in play. We don't get the rail, but again, Tox has been doing a good job of really bringing it. We have plenty of this map left to go. We've only really just gone past the 5-minute warning. The pressure is on. Cypher has got armor to retreat to, so actually Tox, definitely in that encounter, was the one that would have been a little bit more worse off. That's a really important rail. Cypher unfortunately can't hit the important seconds to kind of stop the Mega from being as useful. That said, Tox still no armor on hand and getting knocked down. That's a death sentence right there. The second he gets knocked down, there was nothing he could do to survive that one.
Cypher, his aim is just on point. The rocket's good as well. The flake rail to finish it off, extending his lead by yet another frag. That's 5 points in the lead. It's probably gonna make it 6. Why not? Cypher is just continuing his reign on terror on the overall scoreboard in this map as well. Man is looking absolutely on point, and it just doesn't seem as if Toxjq has any answer to it. Instead of just getting LG'd straight into the floor. Beautiful plays from Cypher once again.
Cypher is making some perfect reads on Tox's respawn as well. There is something like a couple of frags ago near LG. Cypher shot a rocket near LG almost before Tox even entered the room. He's that confident.
But I think that every single player watching this right now is starting to get scared. Look at Cypher, his aim. This is insane. Tracking, absolutely obscene. The rockets, the rail, the LG, everything is just pixel perfect next to all the time. if you're watching this as a contender in the league right now, this is something that is going to concern you greatly.
It's quite funny how he was saying that the first map is often a good indication. Mid-air! The second one to delete. Tox, who just has not been able to play this game at all. 4-14, a savage frag difference. We were talking about game one being enough information to see how Tox is looking. Well, how about Cypher? This guy is absolutely on fire. Looking like the best player that we've seen today, that's for sure.
Yep. No contest in my eyes just yet. Cypher is just absolutely hammering his opponent into the floor. There we go, 15-4. I do think this is about one of the biggest differences in score lines we've seen all day. Loving the discipline there as well. Cypher backing away even with this kind of a lead, knowing that peeking anymore wouldn't be the right decision. Toxjq will land a few nice rockets there. But with just 1 minute and 30 seconds left on the clock, what are you going to do? Flying, that's what. Cypher sends him up to the roof. And while Toxjq does land the railgun to claim himself up the frag, that was just beautiful.
I'm almost really sad there was a piece of wood up there to stop the probably coolest ring out I think I've ever seen. That would have been. Now, we normally talk about comebacks being made on Awoken. I mean, certainly not on this map. Tox is going to just try and get a little bit of that execution on deck. Close range rails, yeah, sure, why not? This map is over 100%, but maybe he's looking for it again. Cheeky. Cheeky. Cypher gets another frag. Looking to make sure, no, I'm going to win by 10 frags. Sorry, I know you're trying, but there's a rocket. That's been a pretty interesting end to the map, but this is all just, jump around, get some free frags.
Toxjq is just gonna have a case of PTSD after this map. He's gonna dream of going through the Awoken teleporter and just having an angry Soar waiting with the rockets at the ready. Cypher is just hell-bent on pulling out these great plays over and over again. And I think the only thing that Toxjq can do right now is already try to focus on the next map. Try to collect himself, his thoughts, realize that this one's over and done with, but it's a faster map like Awoken. Things can get out of control really quickly. He's just got to reframe how he goes about the next map, and he might be able to bring things back after all.
At the very least, this was just a wonderful display of Cypher's current form, wasn't it? That was a dominant map number 1. 19 frags to 8. That is one hell of a way to start the entire series. But remember, everyone, we've been seeing best of 5s all day long because of the nature of the relegation matches. This is a best of 3. So potentially, Cypher is 1 map away from already moving on against Tox. And then whoever wins this will then go up to face the Godslayer Razy, which is a conversation for another time that we're even in this matchup before Razy is. There's a lot to it, but yeah, solid map number 1.
Yeah, I do wonder how Razy feels about this. Watching this performance and knowing that he could have picked any of the other relegation matches between a challenger and one of the lower ranked players in the league, and he might have to face a Cypher like this. I don't know how I'd feel about that if I was Razy right now, but still focusing back on this game. Very convincing start for the Belarusian player. Beautiful LG, great rockets, had a constant, perfect read on what his opponent was up to. Nothing much left to be said than that, really. GG for Cypher. Convincing, strong start.
I mean, just look at how early the lead was established. We were kind of around the 3-minute mark, and it was already a significant margin. There were signs of life from Tox, but again, it kind of just comes down to how weak you become afterwards. And then from this point on, really, it just the train never stopped. It was all about Cypher, just perfect, flawless execution. Just the reads, the traps that were laid, the fact that, hey, he knows Tox is going to, fresh off the spawn, he's going to rush towards LG, or maybe he's going to jump down towards that ledge or something. Cypher just had the perfect call most of the time, but on top of the decision making and the reads that he was making, that still would have been such a good ring out. It was absolutely just how much damage he dished out. The LG was his star weapon for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Cypher's aim was on point. You said it towards the beginning, right? Cypher told you that he doesn't quite feel like he's the Cypher of old, that he's not as good as he used to be. These kinds of games are showing me that he's getting there every single day, working towards it. We all know it. He's been practicing hard, playing a lot of Quake recently just to get himself in the best shape. And look at that. 44% LG, 49% rockets, and 45 railgun. Very good, consistent numbers all across the board. Cypher is looking in amazing shape right now.
So going up next, we do have the interesting factor. We have Ruins of Sarnath, and then this is where the slash pick comes out from Tox. But to answer back, Cypher has the Keel. Now, this kind of matchup is always interesting to me, because Keel, what does he do? He takes damage, he dishes damage. He's one of those like heavy styles where it's all about being able to just kind of go toe to toe, but then dish out just massive damage in a close proximity. Ruins is one of those maps that when those close range fights might come out, it might be in locations where the grenades are actually pretty damn useful. The one factor is that, I mean, Tox, even before we start, he is going to have that massive just mobility advantage. Slash is one of the absolute fastest champions on this map with just how quick she can navigate around, and Keel simply can't keep up with that. So I am very interested to kind of see how Cypher approaches this, with the fact that Tox, the world's greatest Quake 4 player with the crouch slide, I mean, that's why he's been such a legendary player with this champion in the first place.
Absolutely, and I think this is going to be just a complete joy to watch. We're getting to see Tox play Slash again. Very often, players just ban that champion away from him by default. They're like, oh, I'm going up against Tox, Slash, no, that's my first ban, don't want to face it at all. So it's always a joy when we do get to see it. On the other hand, it is Ruins, and Ruins is a notoriously difficult map for small, light champions once you get out of control, because it's so difficult to get these small armors that are positioned on opposite ends of the map. Because if you get caught down towards the bottom or the top on either item, you are in such a bad place, and it's going to be extremely difficult to get out of the situation alive. So Toxjq will definitely have to be very strategic about how he approaches this, and also avoid getting up close and personal with Cypher, because as you just mentioned, the Keel stack, the Keel grenades, the rockets from Belarus, that can hurt a whole lot.
And those large champions that can take a lot of abuse. The entire approach is to just hit those long-range rails, right? You got to kind of chip away at that brick wall of stack that often the heavy champions can work with. And that is going to put pressure on Tox to make sure he's hitting those rails. He didn't have the easiest of times on Awoken, but a lot of that was just the overwhelming offense being put on by Cypher. But that said, Tox, normally very famous for hitting those rails, and he has to do it against Cypher here. I mean, even look, the second we even started and before Tox picked up that armor, just look at the difference in stack before anything was taken at all. It's madness.
Yeah, starting things off on Cypher's perspective as we jump into the second and potentially final map of the series. Look at that stack difference at the top, especially after that rail. Cypher just dwarfs anything that Toxjq could throw at him, as he's setting up below, trying to get a bit of a trap going. If Toxjq jumps down here and gets close to the Keel with those 5 grenades and those rockets at the ready, he is almost guaranteed to perish. So he's playing a very careful game himself, of course. Tox is well aware that he's not hearing anything on the map right now. He's not hearing any jumps, any rockets, anything whatsoever. So he knows to be careful because he suspects that Cypher is setting up a trap.
You would be correct. The rocket launcher collection is going to make a little bit of a noise there, but no massive damage exchange just yet as this Mega is about to spawn. Cypher absolutely able to strong arm his way into the spawn point. And I am very curious to see how Tox approaches this, because Cypher's not making himself easy to spot. The drop down into a decent chunk of LG. And it is hurting a great deal, but again, the damage difference. We talk about Cypher being able to take punishment, but that has nothing to do with his disgustingly good aim today. So now we have a massive stack, a very patient Cypher, and aim that is able to go toe-to-toe, if not slightly better than Toxjq right now. It's a scary combination, Flea.
Oh, absolutely. Toxjq is not in a good position right now, especially with Cypher holding down the center area of the map. He can continuously cycle both major items, and all Toxjq has to work with are the scraps he can find around the map. Cypher quickly going to make his way onto Heavy as well, dropping just that nade as a precaution in case Tox would decide to drop down. But it looks like the Swede is going all defensive right now, playing a bit more of a passive game, trying to avoid Cypher, maybe land some rails, but that's exactly the Belarusian player's plan as well. The LG, the tracking is sublime. He also even picked up the Mega while he's at it. Cypher, though, a little reluctant to just go all out and commit fully to one of these engagements and chases. He's perfectly content for the time being to just continue denying items and dealing damage, because he knows that he'll get his chance sooner rather than later.
As long as he maintained this level of strong control around the map. Tox is kind of playing this runaway game from almost map start, to be honest. And it looks like right now he's soaked up the Mega. Potentially useful, but now he has to make sure he's hitting the rails. If that rail connected, that would have just undone all that hard work. But now, at the moment, I do like this patient game that Tox is playing. He has to play hit and run here. Because right now, Cypher, the stack is still so immense. And even going down towards heavy, you notice Tox is rarely down there because it's just a risk. It's this idea of knowing the grenades are so strong and the damage is so insane and the stack hard to contest with that. Why would you risk it?
Absolutely. Cypher, this might be an opportunity. Tox is kind of stuck in a bad position, looking for a way out, and Cypher is just trying to trap him, but Tox reads it perfectly, and as Cypher is trying to hold down the angle towards heavy, Tox just skates out the other side of the map. This must be getting a little frustrating for Cypher. He's been in control, absolute control for so long, without being able to get a single frag on the board. And of course, the longer this lasts, the larger the opportunity for Tox to finally land 1, 2, 3 rails in a row and completely overthrow him.
There's a real fine line of Tox being within a good rail distance, but also trying to prevent being within LG range of Cypher. Like, there's a real sweet spot, but that rail coming through creates a whole wave of problems for Tox. The heavy has been taken, but he's got to get out of there. You cannot risk getting jumped on. But yeah, Tox, he's playing a rail-heavy game, as we knew he would. But he's also, at the same time, yeah, there's that plasma trail. I actually quite like the use of it. It's going to automatically force Cypher away. He can't really push too hard. But the Mega still was... Yeah, it was out in the open for a little bit, and it's created a delay. So Cypher's established down here. Yeah, again, he's got the stack. And if Tox knows he's down here, surely, yeah, he's looking for damage. Some means to undo the heavy, but no interest in trying to take it. Nowhere close. Too much of a risk. Keel has a lot of presence without having to really move around much. The threat of him is enough for Tox at the moment.
Cypher, of course, being extremely cautious right now because he knows that the moment that he drops a frag and he has to chase down Cypher in such strong control with such a stack advantage is going to be extremely difficult. So his main shot at coming out on top this map is by not dropping that first frag. He wants to stay in this as long as he can, and then when he finds the right opportunity, but Cypher, look at that quick rail, just continuously denying any shot that Toxic might have at just setting up a stack of his own. Here we go though. The rails, as you just mentioned.
But now going in for Mega is a huge risk, and just like that, Tox has been able to soak up the Mega. Cypher behind, but now he's so weak that jumping down towards heavy is a huge risk, and this time Cypher's not going to take it. Getting around towards the light, and for the first time in 5 minutes and 40 seconds, Toxic is now the one that is in control. And it is interesting to see how Cypher really capitalizes from this, because Tox, he's unlikely to change his game of long-range rail play, you know, just constantly chipping away at that stack that Cypher's been working on, but now Tox is the one that's in control. So it's going to be more likely that he can press that attack button if he wants to.
I like the positioning from Cypher here. He knows that even though Tox is in control and has picked up both of the major items, the Swede will not risk getting stuck down there below with a kill. Oh, this might be our first frag. Cypher bleedingly low. Both players missing the shot. Cypher, he's got to get out, got to find himself some resources. Will put himself above that railable threshold, but he does have to surrender the Mega to his opponent. And now Toxic is itching to do some damage, hoping to finally get that first frag. The rockets are sublime. One more rail will do it, and it's Tox who gets it.
Tox was almost rudely reminded exactly why he's been avoiding heavy armor room for the entire map. It's all about the rockets, the grenades, the damage in general was just massive. But Cypher likely to have the LG and rail in hand, which is all he needs. The rocket does wonders, but if there is one of those odd fights within that range again, Cypher's LG has been no joke. But now Tox, he gets one frag, now he has the stack to work with. Plasma Trail is going to be popped. One of them doing 100 damage is going to cause Cypher to retreat, licking his wounds 100%. Now can Tox capitalize on this? Oh, a cute little anger there from Cypher. Tox doesn't want to go the obvious way, but he actually eats another rail. Has to be very careful at this range. He has to make sure he hits those rails, and now either rail, both players miss. That was a scary encounter.
I also just want to point out that engagement as heavy, the last one, you could clearly see Tox noticing the shadow before Cypher even dropped down, and he set his crosshair set up perfectly, waiting for his opponent to drop down right in front of it. So having the right settings and knowing how to use those small little details on the map definitely helping him out right there. But right now, with 2 minutes left on the clock, things might start looking a bit difficult for Cypher because he has next to no opportunity to catch someone as fast as Slash, especially when she's being played by what's probably the single best crouch slider in the world. So Cypher definitely hoping to get a successful trap on and just land the rails when it matters the most.
This is that hard kind of mix-up, you know, which way am I going to go? The Plasma Trail able to get Slash out of there, thank you very much. And any other champion, I think Tox would have been a much larger spot of bother. That was a great rail. And he's going to go aggressive on the teleport. Tox is going to slide away for his life, and he has to be so careful with these angles. Cypher, I mean, we say that, hey, all he's got to do is hit a few rails. With Cypher, that is totally possible. And Tox knows and respects that fact. There is a clear defensive games coming through here. But look at Tox's lack of armor. That one light, saving grace, to be honest.
Yeah, Tox right now has switched to a fully passive and defensive playstyle. He's just going to try and avoid these fights at any cost possible. He knows that Cypher's in full control. He knows he cannot challenge for that anymore. But what he can do is just play the runaway plus back game and use that mobility that he has with his champion to his favor. Cypher actually kind of boosts himself through the teleporter. The rails are coming through. Toxjq down to just 40 points of health. One more will do it. Cypher, he hits the rock!
Oh my
he hit
god,
the rock at the ceiling.
That is, oh my god, one of the biggest unintentional saves. Here comes that rocket jump, Cypher. He has to be aggressive. There's 25 seconds left of this map. Tox only one frag in the lead. This is a really scary position for both sides, but Cypher, you know, he just wants to close it out now. We don't want to go into a final map. 10 seconds on the clock. Tox needs to make sure he doesn't get seen. Playing the game, Plasma Trail. It's going to be, I mean, surely it's over. You can't chase. He's too far away. Tox played this matchup absolutely flawlessly. He knew what to expect, and he had a game plan before we even went into this map. That was highly impressive stuff from Tox, especially after how one-sided that first map was. We went into an entirely different champion matchup. It was very clear what Cypher's kind of intentions would be going into that. But Tox, smart decision. It was all about range and staying out of that kind of magic distance for Cypher to get both his grenades on deck, but also the LG. We did not get a chance to see basically any LG. That was a rail map almost all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. Toxjq played that to perfection. He knew exactly what to do, and that was stay far away from Cypher and just land the rails. And it worked out perfectly for him. Cypher, of course, being the slower champion, or Toxjq, what am I saying? Toxjq having that speed to work in his favor. Cypher being stuck on the keel had so little freedom of movement, so little mobility, that once Toxjq managed to put himself that one frag in the lead just by continuously landing the rails over and over and over again, he just had to run away for the final few minutes of the map, and that's exactly what he needed to do, and exactly what he did. 36% railgun accuracy, 23% rockets, but I think making a bit of a statement right there with the LG. Toxjq 45% LG, showing that he is still the Terminator.
That was just a great showing of a game plan played to perfection, because just if memory serves, it was around the 5.5 minute mark where Tox finally got control for the first time. Other than that, it was just completely using that mobility to the advantage, using it to stay alive. Really, as I've mentioned before, trying to kind of play that game of I want to hit you with my rail, but I need to make sure that I'm not within a distance that your LG can punish me. Because even if he's hitting a rail, Cypher's LG, as crazy strong as it was, you would sometimes like trade that damage. You just trade the damage of a rail with your guaranteed string of LG halfway through. Like that's I imagine a scary position to be in, but we are now going on to our final map. Looking like it might be, yeah, Molten Falls, Pfizer and Strog. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. That first map was so one-sided that, I mean, I'm sure the people that are rooting for Cypher, and you know, there are some people out there that thought, hey, Cypher, he's got this, man, he's got this easy. And you'd be within your right to think that, because he's on such a godlike tear. But after that first map, it would be so easy to assume, but second map was just almost like two sides of a coin. So different.
Yeah. And I think that in a way, this is kind of the opposite of what we saw earlier, right? Because this time around, it's Cypher playing the crouch sliding champion, slightly slower than Slash, but still much, much faster than the Visor that Tox has got going for him. So Cypher, he's got the mobility, he's got the speed advantage this time around, whereas Toxic with the piercing sight can get himself that extra bit of information very easily. So it's going to be interesting to see how Cypher deals with that and if he can make good use of that speed boost.
I mean, we've certainly seen the speed boost pay its dues on large maps like Molten Falls. There's a little bit of opening damage there from Tox, but really very little. And there's that immediate kamikaze. I mean, a decent placement for it, to be honest. It was very rare or unlikely that Tox was going to be able to kind of get that chase without walking into a kamikaze first. But all things considered, not a crazy eventful first 30 seconds. It's all about trying to get that first bit of pressure established, and it looks like Cypher absolutely no idea that Tox was right behind him. Nothing personal, kid.
Yeah, a little bit of a slap on the bum right there. A friendly little teaser from Tox, saying there's a lot more where that came from as he maneuvers himself onto the heavy. Toxic, so far with a slight stack advantage, and there's quite a significant split between the items. 10 seconds. Toxic knows exactly where his opponent is. He's gonna miss the rail. Cypher gonna capitalize off of that. Race for the Mega is open. Cypher, he's got the speed, will be the first one to drop down. Toxic, is he gonna try and make a move? Rockets coming out. Cypher nevertheless stealing the item away clean under his nose.
Nice rail!
Yeah, good punish. And another one!
Now Cypher should at least be able to get in and out thanks to the crouch slide. So he takes 2 rails, but the reward of that was denying the heavy. And just like that, the stack difference is pretty even. And funnily enough, I mean, Cypher's going to be in position to get it first, but a little bit too eager perhaps to use that jump pad. The piercing sight's going to get popped. Cypher is going to get melted just in time for that Mega to spawn. And a little bit of those free armor shards, I mean, it's better than nothing.
Absolutely, and Tox putting himself on the board first. We saw exactly what happened last game when the same thing occurred. Let's hope for Cypher's sake that he can at least do a bit more to turn things around this time around. And he's got plenty of time to work with. Still 8 minutes left on the clock. Toxic right now the one with the lower stack of the two, just setting himself up towards one of the major safe zones of the map, towards Railgun. He's got a lot of escape routes. 5 seconds left till he's got his piercing sight again. He knows more or less exactly when Cypher picked up Mega. He can deduce it based on where the Strog is at right now. He should hear the heavy pickup as well. Cypher still hasn't dropped for it. Nice plays from Tox. He is playing a good reactive game, but Cypher going heavily aggressive.
Yeah, I know. Cypher, I mean, he went almost quite all in that encounter and hit every shot except for the last one. That one last one gave Tox the avenue to kind of even the odds in effect. Problem is, Heavy's long gone, and now with that Mega in play, Tox is looking pretty damn healthy to try and pressure it. He's not going to have piercing sight, but I don't even think that matters at this point. Tox has more than enough information to just play some kind of... Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he's confident. We're going to jump in and take that all the same. Tox has a really strong stack lead now. Piercing sight's going to get used. And he's waiting for the... Yeah, there's the play. Kamikaze's going to get kind of wasted, but at the very least, Cypher is going to have information on that. Mega's been taken. Cypher looking to just get in and out. It's a game of stack so far. Neither player wants to push too hard, but as I've said that, this is where Cypher's going to look to get a little bit more extra damage. We'll see.
In most of the key fights so far, it's been the railgun aim that's been the decider in Toxic's favor. So often, Cypher, even when he gets the lead, oh my god, the damage is filthy coming out of Toxic. Both players will survive. Toxic slightly worse for wear, and Cypher tying things right back up, finally firing up the railgun. Let's hope he can keep that momentum going a bit longer as he steals away Mega as well. Now
You can tell that
right
Tox,
above him.
His idea was to put himself in that position to get the rail right before he had the 2 health bubbles, but just that's the kind of big play, all or nothing. If you miss the rail, you get punished. You're going to go for the kamikaze as well. Tox, unfortunately, not in an amazing spot, but Cypher is going to be hungry after this. He's going to go through the teleporter anyway. By all accounts, hang on, they trade. best case scenario for Tox. Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful mid-air rocket from the Swede, and another one to open things up with. Cypher does have the LG. Toxjq is lacking that weapon, but he has the railgun to make up for it. Heavy will be the first item to spawn. We're immediately seeing another engagement. Cypher hungry for blood. Rockets raining down from above. He's bleeding health rapidly too. Toxjq steals away the Heavy. Cypher still sticking around. Got a slight stack advantage and definitely has the better position. Running out of LG ammo. Can he do anything? Can Toxjq take down the Beaker? Yeah, he can.
And it wasted just enough time. Cypher committing to the Beaker meant that Tox was able to get the Mega completely uncontested.
It was one of those nerve-wracking moments for Tox, because you know that it can be so difficult to take down the Beaker when you don't have a railgun to work with, and when Cypher is controlling and whipping it around wildly like that, it can be so difficult to do enough damage. And meanwhile, Toxjq was so low that a Kamikaze would definitely taken him out right there.
Yeah, hitting Pika is one thing. Hitting the Pika when you know, if I miss this shot, he's actually going to kill me, is an entirely different bag. But Tox keeps that control again. This has been a very kind of respectful 5.5 minutes on Molten. Tox has just enough extra stack to make it really count if he can keep it up. Heavy's in play, gets it again. There's a chunky delay between the two items. Cypher having to play this one as carefully as he can. It's going to be all about that opening rail with how they're playing it so far. They're keeping each other so far away. Question is, who's going to be comfortable enough to get that first push? Cypher, content, conceding control again. It's going to go to Toxjq.
Yeah, Cypher, clearly.
Wow.
Cypher's a little bit razzled by the fact that his opponent, of course, has got that piercing sight in play. No time can you rest easy knowing that your opponent might be able to spot you no matter where you are on the map. And Cypher is, of course, extra concerned with Toxjq setting up traps or just making wrong move like that! DLG craters him into the floor. Cypher definitely making a misplay right there with the Peeker coming out at the worst possible time. Toxjq using the piercing sight to land some beautiful shots.
Read. And he knows where Cypher's going to escape.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to get that final rail, it's just knowing he's going to have no choice but to escape. And now Cypher, he has unfortunately put himself into a very, very alarming situation because with 2 frags in the lead. Cypher, he spawns near LG, but it's all he's going to have. But he's getting good damage, misses the rail. Hang on a minute, he might be able to really punish this.
He should. Toxjq switching to the rail and missing the shot allowed his opponent to get Mega and escape from the room as well. Cypher's got a pretty good idea of where Tox is. Out comes the Peeker, but the railgun is ready to deal with it instantly. And now Heavy's about to spawn. Toxjq knows exactly where his opponent is because of the piercing sight. He's still 2 frags in the lead, 2.5 minutes left on the clock. That's definitely kind of the mark where Tox can start playing a bit more defensively and holding off his opponent. But on the other hand, Cypher has got a massive stack advantage and he's got that movement speed over his opponent. So Toxjq not in the clear just yet. Good rockets though! Cypher remains steady, holds his position and lands the rail to put himself 1 frag closer to tying things up.
Not a bad room to get the frag in either with that much armor to go with. However, Cypher, he's going to pop the Peeker. So close to it. Cypher, railable at this health. Has to watch out for the machine gun. Can he get the LG? Tox, having the machine gun in hand, perhaps thinking maybe Cypher was a little bit weaker than he thought he was. But this is now tricky for both sides. Tox, fresh off the spawn, he's got nothing. This is Cypher's green light to be aggressive. Tox has basically nothing to fight back. That missed rail really is unfortunate, but that second one hitting its mark is certainly better than nothing. Tox, you hate to be fresh off a spawn against a Cypher with that much weaponry coming right at you. The fact that he managed to get away and survive is impressive, but
Cypher's early.
Yeah, he is.
Dangerously early right there. Might end up paying for this big time. Tox, 1 good rocket will do it, but Cypher does manage to get out of the room in time. Risky, risky.
Oh, rocket, that's information. Tox, at the very least, now he's going to get the Mega and knowledge that Cypher was, in fact, down there. And there's a chunky delay in between the 2 items. Going to get a couple more rotations before at least the end of this map. Fair to assume it's going to come down to 1 frag or a sudden death at this point, but both players, they're not shy of pushing away. They're keeping that aggression on thick. Tox does not want to let Cypher just run in and take that Heavy completely unchallenged.
Now Cypher just taking top control. He must have heard his opponent. He knows that Toxjq is close. Mega will be going his way. Good exchange of rails there as well. Now keep in mind, this is the deciding map of this series. 4-4. It might as well be overtime already. Whoever gets the next frag is in such a good position. Good opening rail by Cypher, trying to get a good read on Toxjq, and he reads him perfectly. Down goes Tox. Cypher, just has to hang on to this.
The danger is now the fact that Tox spawned down here and he was nowhere near close enough for the heavy. Was the blessing that Cypher was looking for. This map is going to be over, and it's going to be Cypher taking the victory over Toxjq. All the way up until the last second, it was hard to call, but the second we got that one read near the railgun, and then the glorious spawn where Tox went straight forward. I mean, that really was all she wrote. The second Tox went forward, because understandably he didn't want to give up heavy, that was all she wrote. A good series and a damn good set of games.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to Cypher. He will be the one advancing to the next round. But keep in mind, this was not a relegation match, so Toxjq is still in the tournament. It is a double elimination tourney after all, so he still has a lifeline to make his way back up to the grand finals if need be.
He does indeed. What an affair between those two as well. Really getting everyone heart rates going, I'd imagine, for all the viewers out there. Obviously, we wanted a spectacle of a series, and we absolutely got it. It looked like it was going to be basically a swift 2-0 from Cypher initially after what you saw, we saw from the first map. Then a complete 180 occurs. Tox scrapes by. We get taken to a third where it seemed like on Molten, that was it. There was never going to be a return for Cypher. But in the last few minutes of that game, I mean, somehow he just did it, and now Cypher moves on. That is a miraculous feat for this man.
It's just one great but small victory that he needs laid on top of many victories throughout the course of this series. I kind of think that Tox has kind of got that early presence where he had a real killer of an opponent, and so did Cypher. You know, this was absolutely a vice versa kind of situation where they had a very difficult round one. There's no way of getting around that, but they both rose to the occasion. Only one player is going to move on, you know, in this situation, and here it's going to be Cypher. But both of them had to work their backsides off for it, and Cypher can feel really good about that. It just came down to just good reads, good plays at the very last second. But the two of them, I mean, they were just hitting some out-of-this-world shots, making some great decisions. Tox with the kind of like iron will in the second map to just win on that one frag. You know, that was like a very tense ruins to get through, especially after this map here. Like, this is just like a complete section of highlights, most of which is Cypher just getting free frags because he's just playing it perfectly. And this is his one frag here. And that's it. Like, that's the only frag we saw, really, on that map. Yeah, it's night and day difference. But we saw a great clash of styles.
And I also think it comes to show how resilient Toxjq is and how much experience both of these players have, right? So many lesser players, after going down the way Toxjq did in that first map, that would have been the it. That would have been the end of all of it. Their resilience, their resistance would have been completely shot, but Toxjq is so experienced and such a veteran of Quake that he's got the skill to just calm himself back down, recollect himself, and go into the next map as a completely new battle.
And he did, and did it incredibly well. I mean, up until the last few minutes of the game, really. It was only really in those last moments that Cypher was able to just reset, get back into the matrix, you know, witnessing the game as just pure binary and smash his way through it to lock it down. So obviously for Cypher, in our first actual best of 3, he picks up that victory and now moves on. But that does mean he's going to be facing off versus Razy in that second round, which obviously is a worrying subject, boys.
It is, and it's just the constant question of why.
Yeah.
But like, there really is no other way to. I mean, I'm sure I'd love to pick his brain about it, and there's always confidence there if you're in Razy's position. But us as viewers, I mean, we know we're guaranteed to get one hell of a next round.
I think Cypher's probably one of 2, maybe 3 people in the tournament that could realistically beat Razy. So that's a very enticing encounter.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it was actually Cypher who beat Razy during Stage 3, the online phase, just a few weeks ago. So clearly, there's something to the man that could stick it to Razy, and quite an interesting choice for Razy to pick him as potentially one of his first matchups.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised at this point. I mean, we know how Razy is as a personality inside of the game. He likes to try and style on people. He likes to show off that he is damn good at Quake. I wonder if that actually could have been him looking at things and just being like, I want to prove Cypher wrong.